Welcome back to the Wise Duke podcast, everyone. I'm here with Catherine Klistek, and we're talking about the Sony and Marvel split. What's interesting about this is Marvel, as the comic label, has many different characters, such as Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and the X-Men. What's even more interesting is Marvel Studios and other different studios, such as Sony and other ones, have different rights to those, like Sony, I believe, Fox has X-Men, but now since Disney acquired Fox, Disney, which owns Marvel Studios, which now owns Fox, has X-Men. But Spider-Man's an interesting case. So you're going to talk about that for a bit?
Sure. So with Spider-Man, what happened was, when Marvel was in the lowest of the low, I believe it was in the 90s, they had to sell some of their really big characters to corporations such as Fox and Sony in order to get money to not go bankrupt. And so they sold Spider-Man, which was by far the biggest character they ever had. And then they released Iron Man in 2008, and they started blowing up again. And they really wanted Spider-Man back after that, because, it's Spider-Man. Yes. He's huge. Mm-hmm. He's iconic. Mm-hmm. So they tried to make a deal with Sony, and then after some cooperation, Sony agreed, and then Spider-Man showed up in Civil War after a contract deal where Spider-Man movies could be produced through Marvel, but Sony had to pay for the production, and they got 95% of all movie profits, while Marvel got 5%, and they got all the marketing. And so what happened was in August, basically, Marvel wanted more money from it, and through Disney, and so Marvel was trying to ask for more money where they would get 50% of the profit, but they would still keep marketing. And Sony was kind of like, yeah, no, how about we keep our original deal? And then Marvel kind of backed out. And that caused this huge uproar because Spider-Man wasn't going to be in the MCU anymore. And from that, it kind of all went downhill until about a week ago, they announced that the new deal was reached.
Yeah.
So,
and also to set the stage, before Iron Man in the early 2000s, there's been the 3 Spider-Mans with Tobey Maguire by Sam Raimi. And then we had, while the MCU was kind of it was still growing, 2012 and 2014 there were 2 movies, The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. So that was around the time of right around the first Avengers, which is all the major characters except for Spider-Man. So
yeah, and that movie could, the original Spider-Mans that Sony produced with Tobey Maguire, those were considered very good and iconic, while Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, not
that
everyone
just slipped
liked him.
off. Yeah, because I don't hear much about the Andrew Garfield one, but I hear lots about the one with Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, and people seem to like Tom Holland. The Tobey Maguire fans, still stick with him, but a lot of people do like Tom Holland because of the youthfulness that he brings to the role.
And also it's interesting because each character kind of portrayed a different kind of Spider-Man. I'll tell you this, I haven't seen either of the 2 previous ones. I've seen all the MCU movies.
Same.
So I do know Tom Holland. I haven't seen Spider-Man yet, but like you said, he was introduced in Civil War, which later that year, a year after, they came out with Homecoming, which is his own first kind of independent, similar with Black Panther, where he was introduced in Civil War, and then they brought him on board for a full movie. And then now Spider-Man's been a major part of the cinematic universe, which then being friends with Iron Man, us losing him in Infinity War, and then Endgame, kind of this new era, which is interesting.
Yeah, and then there was Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yes.
And I think because of the way it ended was why fans were so angry of the split, because it ended, spoiler alert, with basically Spider-Man was outed to the entire world, and it's so dramatic and big, and all the Marvel characters were tied into the way it was, that, if Sony just took over then, it would have ruined the whole thing.
And it's interesting with the way that ended, with looking at Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is a great movie if you haven't seen it. It's really beautifully well done. But also, it's the multiverse idea that they brought up in Far From Home, where they were Spider-Man's there's a multiverse. We saw the Elementals, we saw Mysterio, but that ended up, spoiler alert, being a hoax, because Mysterio is not really Mysterio. Here's this fake character pretending to be Mysterio.
Yeah.
But then Jake Gyllenhaal, who plays Mysterio, whoever his character was, Quentin Beck, said at the very end that there's this dimensional rip that now is telling us that there's the possibility of being the idea of a multiverse. Because Into the Spider-Verse, what happens is, again, there's these dimensional rips where we start off with, I think we start off with the original Spider-Man, Peter Parker, a bit older, not kind of probably more Tobey Maguire-esque, I'd say. And then we delve into Miles Morales, this young Latino Spider-Man. And then we got Spider-Gwen, we got Spider-Noir, who's a black and white, very kind of detective-esque, who fights Nazis. So it's all kind of different eras of time. And then we get the hilarious John Mulaney Spider-Pig.
So iconic.
Very iconic. And then, so it's like all these different areas of Spider-Man and villains that we've never really seen before in the MCU, but in the Spider-Verse, which now brings up the possibility, could they be introduced into the MCU?
Yeah.
Which is an interesting idea.
I think one of the things that people were actually kind of happy for, like, if Spider-Man went into Sony, could they introduce the whole Spider-Verse into his timeline and maybe, like, connect, maybe even bring back Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Mans into his own universe, too. Like, people were kind of hyped for that, but at the same time, it was at the big cost of them losing all these amazing characters, how they, like, built him up using Iron Man, and how they, like, connected him to all the other characters. So that was a big problem.
But now they've created this new deal, which gets him on for 2 more movies.
Yeah.
So likely some, again, Avengers movie where it's like a whole team.
Yeah.
And then probably a 3rd movie, because we've mostly seen 3 movies for each character. Mm-hmm. But because we've got 3 Iron Man movies, 3 Thor movies, plus 1 more.
Yeah.
We've got 3 Captain America movies, 2 Spider-Man movies so far, maybe 1 more, maybe another. I mean...
Yeah, if it gets to become such a big hit and people keep pushing for it, who knows, maybe Spider-Man can actually stay with Marvel, which actually kind of brings me to another point I want to discuss. The internet's kind of going crazy because they have a theory that the whole split was just a publicity stunt to, up Spider-Man more.
Interesting.
Bring him into a conversation.
Interesting. I think that's a definite possibility.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like a conspiracy theorist and, talk about it. But, I mean, anything's possible. I mean, we don't know. We're not executives, but, people do that all the time.
Yeah, because when looking at the dates, it was kind of weird, because it was almost an exact month after they announced that he was out of the MCU, they announced he was back in it. And I thought it was kind of weird how it, timed up just so perfectly and how there wasn't more negotiation. But at the same time, no one knows, because, it's the world of business. I don't know too much about that. And
Marvel Studios knows their fan base really well, because the Russo brothers on Instagram, way before Endgame, started hyping it up. They posted some weird picture. I mean, not a weird picture, but it's like a general picture that looked behind the scenes-y. But there were certain objects that you could pick out and trace the letters of Endgame.
Oh.
And also, I don't know if they really lied to us, but maybe to bring up conversation, they did say that the title was not said in any movie, or not said in Infinity War, which was false, because Doctor Strange said we're in the Endgame now. So again, they've done several little stunts, I guess. I'm not saying it is true, but very much a possibility.
Yeah, they teased so many different titles for Endgame before it happened. The Last Avenger, everyone thought that was going to happen, because people were reading the lips of some interview that Mark Ruffalo did, and they were like, oh, he said The Last Avenger, it's gotta be that. And who knows when they even came up with the movie title, because they teased so many different things that could have been the movie title. Maybe they came up with it last minute, who knows? Yeah,
and also the whole new ones that were announced, the Disney Expo D23, which I believe happened in Anaheim or California, Los Angeles. They announced the new Doctor Strange movie, the 4th Thor, which is going to be interesting because I think they're having the girl is Thor. I forget her name.
I think she played Padme, right?
Yeah, Natalie
the same
Portman.
Actor. Natalie Portman, yeah.
Yeah, she's going to play the new Thor, whatever Jane, what's her name, whatever
And the director said that Thor is still going to be the main character, but she's also going to be a main character.
Which is also a thing in the Marvel comics that Jane Foster has become Thor. And also they're doing I think they might be doing a similar thing. I think it's either a new movie or a Disney Plus series with Falcon as Captain America.
Yeah.
Which is a thing. I don't
Captain America Winter Soldier, I think that's it.
I think I don't read the comics, but I do know a lot about, like, the characters and such. Because there is, like, the Sam Wilson as Captain America kind of character.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting to bring up as well. And with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which might kind of be more as Guardians of the Galaxy with Thor maybe becoming part of the team. I don't know.
Who knows?
But James Gunn right now, he's doing Suicide Squad 2, so...
Yeah.
But it's all interesting the way it's set up. Because first, when Iron Man first came out, nobody knew that it was just going to be 20 movies. I mean...
It was amazing. The way they just slowly built it up like that, it was one of the most amazingly written things I've ever seen. And another theory I have for what possible movie that Spider-Man could go into that's not just a solo Spider-Man movie is there are rumors floating around the internet of a Young Avengers movie where it's just like a bunch of younger kids, and supposedly people are saying Spider-Man might be the leader of them. And it's like a small group.
Interesting.
So if they did do that, that would be a decent idea for Spider-Man to go into that.
I think that would work, but I mean, it's definitely a possibility because they've done so many different things.
Oh my gosh. They control so much of the superhero world.
I mean, even we've seen Howard the Duck in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. we haven't seen, but, he's just there.
Yeah.
So...
Cameos are amazing in that. Just like the small teasers to different things. Stan Lee cameos. Oh my gosh. Now the Endgame's over and that whole saga is done. You gotta wonder, like, is Stan Lee cameos gonna be still in it? Or maybe they'll do Robert Downey Jr. cameos because he was the starter.
Yeah. I mean, they've done a lot of digital things because with Rise of Skywalker, I think Carrie Fisher passed away during shooting, I'm not sure, or was it Last Jedi? I know it
was Last Jedi shooting, I think, and no, she passed away
when they wrapped.
Right when they wrapped, but she was still alive at the end of the movie, so they had to CGI her into this next movie, which she's probably going to be killed off in to save money. But
maybe, yeah. Who
possibly
knows? We'll see. Because I know Abrams said he was going to have, or it was Rian Johnson, I said, make her a bigger part of the story, so...
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. They did the same thing with, in Rogue One with Grand Moff Tarkin, because the actor's long gone. They just used, past footage that he's been in, and they had a physical stand-in, of course, because you can't just plaster a body in, but it's interesting how, maybe they'll do Stanley cameos. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, like you said, Robert Downey Jr., since he doesn't, spoiler alert, exist in the universe anymore, maybe they'll be him. I don't know.
Yeah, it would be funny cameos. I feel like he could do great cameos because he's just so good at improvising on the spot. And just a lot of the characters are so good at improvising because of the way MCU runs things. And it would be really interesting if they kept on doing Spider-Man movies and he cameoed in one and, like, Peter Parker saw him and he's like, oh my god, is it you? And he's like, what are you talking about?
Maybe he'll see him in a vision. I don't know. But I'm excited that Sony and Marvel are back together. Whether it be
amazing.
True or not, like whether it be a stunt, but, I'll see the movies. I mean...
Oh, yeah. Because no matter what they do, we'll probably spend money on it at the end of the day.
Yeah. They'll make so much revenue with Disney Plus, but...
That was such a good idea on their part.
But, I think Sony and Marvel have a good future together. But thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, like I said, Sony and Marvel have a bright future together. This has been the Wise Duke Podcast.